Well, on to our other focus of the evening on left, right and centre protests at the Punjab University, where students took on recent fee hikes. In fact, those protests even took an ugly turn. The students took their angst and anger to the Vice-Chancellor's door. Water cannons had to be used and police, we are told, were injured trying to halt those protests. This in a week which has seen protests by parents across the country on the issue of fee hike from Bengaluru to Chandigarh, Mumbai and Hyderabad. Parents, students have been protesting, often right outside school gates. The hike, we're told, anywhere between 10% to as high as 30 to 40, say some parents. Schools, of course, have a different view, and that's our other big focus, like I said, this evening. Let's get started. Let me introduce my panel to you right away. Joining us in the studio this evening, Amita Vatal, Principal, Spring Day School. Thanks very much for coming in, ma'am. Yatish Rajawat, Chief Strategy Officer, Local Circles. Local Circles has done, in fact, a survey. We're going to get into details of that on this fee hike. Also, Shailendra Kumar Singh, he's a parent. His daughter studying in a school which has increased its fee. Lata Vaidyanathan, Educationist and Director, Terry Prakriti School, also with us. Thanks all so much for being with us. Shailendra, let me start by asking you, you've been a very vocal voice in recent weeks during this protest. Now, a 10% fee hike, many private schools say, is just, it's fair, and they can make it. Look at inflation is what they're saying. Look at the facilities being provided. What is the big disagreement that you have?
So, the first meeting which I had with the principal, I said that we are not the aliens, we are not the robots. We can understand, why don't you tell us the problem? The area where the school lies, there is no changes actually on the electricity bills, no change in the maintenance bills. So the main real estate sector, which is one of the key portion where the cost of all these fees goes there, that is standard. Even the rate of interest of the bank loan is going down this year, especially on that. So what is actually causing this? So there is no answer. So the problem is there is
salaries, hikes on
salary, what happens? Say that if the school gets about 6 to 8 crores in a year, the salary distribution is in range of about 20% of that. So we are not against the salary hike of the teachers, but the problem is that amount of salary distributed by the school to teachers is relatively very less with respect to what they talk about. They only talk about a salary hike, but actually with respect to the teachers not getting that salary, then where this money is going.
So is it your point, let me just understand your point quickly, is it your point that what the schools are doing with this fee hike is just building up their coffers, just adding to their profit? That's your take on this.
Absolutely.
Okay, Mrs. Vatal, come in here. We've seen lots of angry parents, anguished parents. Fee hike happens every year, but this year somehow there have been a lot more protests. People have gone into the kind of detail that the schools are charging for. The point that Mr. Singh there is making, that what are they paying more for suddenly? Why are we paying more? Now, what do the schools have to say?
Well, essentially, I would say that firstly, there's a huge hunger for education, which is not being fulfilled by the state governments.
Absolutely.
As a result of which, there's a huge burden coming on towards private schools. And so there's a resentment and there's a complete trust deficit that's built up, which is really sad because after all, we are supposed to be in the area of learning and transaction and children. Having said that, and I sympathize with the parent over here, but I think having said that, there are schools and there are schools. First and foremost, if you're looking at good quality education and you're looking at good quality schools, the issue is not about the teacher's salary going to 20%, 85% of it gets into teachers' salaries. That's what the tuition fees are. For example, in a given year, there are 2 DA rises. There is which is about 10%, between 9 and 10%. 2 DA rises in a year. There's a 3% increment. There's a Diwali bonus, and so this whole thing. And schools are paying, and you see. As I said,
so
to
the bulk
quality
is
schools,
going
6 pay commission if they're being paid.
Yeah.
If schools are not paying the 6 pay commission, then I think they have to be monitored, they have to be found out, there should be systems in place, but you can't just paint everybody with the same brush.
Okay, fair enough, can't paint everybody with the same brush. Lata Vaidyanathan, come in here, ma'am, as somebody who has headed a top institution, someone who understands the education space. This week we've seen schools make news for different reasons, for protests outside their gates, that too for fee hikes. How do you see this? How can we resolve this? Perhaps there's nobody really guilty or innocent here. We just have to resolve this. The point that Mrs. Vatal made is that the aim here, of course, is education and learning.
So, Natasha, give me just 1 minute properly on this. I have 4 simple points to make. 4 points to make on this. Firstly, look at the enrollment in schools, private schools. Where have we gone wrong over these 70 years that over 40% of children's enrollment is happening in private schools? Somewhere the schools, government school systems need to be improved in order to reduce this burden of private schools and educating children. Secondly, let's look at the politicized populist measures sometimes begin to impact the quality. When we say it impacts the quality, I am saying that I agree with Amita that not all schools need to be painted with the same brush, because end of the day we need to pay a teacher's salary. Somewhere something is wrong, Natasha. It is not 20%. I think schools spend on teachers and establishment close to 60 to 80% in big schools.
Right.
Therefore, I don't think this argument that very little salary is being paid is right.
Okay.
Further, look at the other things that good quality schools need to do. They have to augment their infrastructure. They have to look at the professional development of teachers. They have to look at the 4th industrial age and make sure that all those facilities that will take them towards that kind of deliverance is required.
Right. Okay.
Additionally, I think instead of paying so much attention over the last 2 decades to nursery admissions and to occupying, including the judicial system's attention to, let us say, fee hikes and other such issues, I think most time should be spent on getting the government school systems right, so that
that's a good point, right.
this whole burden which is there on the private schools
Is lifted.
and the attentions private schools are getting must be reduced.
Fair enough. Before I get Yatish and Atichi, Marlena and Shailendra Singh, let me ask you, that really is a fair point that parents also need to look at. All of us wanted better education for our students, for our children, and we have therefore chosen private schools. We had the option of course, sending them to government schools, but that's not what we did.
Absolutely. So that's why we put in the private schools, and that's what our expectations are. Unfortunately, what is happening, there is a big disparity, because whatever the school is getting from the fees, and when they are putting it to the salary, there is a maintenance, there is a security, there's all this stuff there, the cost. But they never give any broadcast on that. Is really that the cost. That makes
You're saying make it transparent.
no
Where is it going?
Absolutely, there is no transparency.
Yeah, just a moment, Yatish.
I just want to tell you that as per the Directorate of Education, everything has
They are
to be
meant to.
posted on your website.
Right.
I know that Springdale's has everything on the website.
I
You
think
can click
we
it now
come
and
back
you'll
to
see
let's
it.
not paint everyone with the same brush. I can understand
Yes.
education, unfortunately, has become such a big business. It's the business of education that perhaps it's not happening everywhere. But I take the point that both of you are making. Yes, Yatish.
So the 3 points here basically. One is that inflation in the country is between 3.5 and 4%. These fees hikes are ranging from 10 to 30%. Okay, the bulk of the survey shows that 70% of the parents have witnessed fees hike more than 10%. Now, salary hikes, if you see for private sector, is in the range of 7 to 9% this year. It has been a bad year for the last 2 years. Salaries have not gone up in accordance with the. So there is this anomaly in the system, and this is an anomaly that. You can blame the government school, and you can say that the government school do not function and the government needs to do a lot of things, but there is a lot that the private school are doing on their own that is creating this dichotomy in the system where parents are now suffering more than that they should. I'll give you
Because of this hike that you're saying is not necessarily only
the hike
10%,
is not commensurate with the inflation.
Okay.
And schools
or
are pointing.
perhaps the facilities provided. Okay.
Schools are pointing out to the 7th pay commission. How many private schools do
So
you
they've
know?
been told that 7th pay commission can't now be included as
not
part.
given that.
6th pay commission
not given that.
is the point that
even
was
if you
made.
take 6th pay commission, how many schools
Natasha,
are there
Yeah.
which have followed the
Let me
6th
come
pay
in on
commission?
Yeah, okay,
So-
quickly ma'am before I get Atishin. Yes ma'am, go ahead.
Natasha, now just one point. Okay, so here is something I want to say. I think if we can improve the kind of audits, the kind of rating systems and the kind of regulatory measures that will ensure quality, then I'm sure they'll find a way, like other countries do, to incentivize good schools. And not just good
Fair
schools,
enough.
even
But
government
schools
schools will
themselves
get
are opposing
additional
it.
grants.
I mean,
A whole
schools
system
have
of
gone to Supreme Court
incentivization
against
should
this.
take place rather than finding fault with the system.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so it's all because all schools, this belief that most of the schools are not fair is also perhaps needs to be seen, because everything is very transparent
You know,
today.
Natasha,
Okay,
Everything is on their
it ought to be-
websites.
it ought to
Like
be
Amita
better.
said, I think all good schools have it on their websites.
Yeah, they do, but of course in certain states where the government has said, for instance, I think Maharashtra is one of them where the government has said that they're going to keep a close eye on the fee hikes, and as far as the schools come and tell the government why they're increasing it and make it quite transparent, there has been opposition. In fact, I think it's also, it's also gone,
in UP,
it's also gone court.
In UP, all the schools went to court, Supreme, they went to High Court, they got a stay from the High Court. In Haryana, they went to High Court. Then they went to Supreme Court.
While in some
Rajasthan, they have
can't bring
opposed
everybody
it
to mediocrity.
Absolutely.
This is what they're doing now.
In Tamil Nadu, they opposed the ordinance. Gujarat enforced it in February this year. Bihar enforced it late last year. So these are two states which have successfully controlled the hike in the. So it's not a question of absolute fee. It's also a question of how much do you hike the fee every year. I mean,
and perhaps how do you explain it? Okay,
Yeah.
let me get Atishi Marlena in. She's an education advisor to the Aam Aadmi Party government, but here this evening also because she is so invested in education herself. Atishi, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah, I think there's 3-4 points that I would want to make. First of all, of course, I do agree with the fact that all governments have to take responsibility for improving government schools. That has to be the basis of any education reform. Number 2, I do agree that schools have the right to spend on improving the quality of the schools. They may want to bring in technology, etc., and they definitely should be able to spend money on that.
Right.
But the question is not of that. The question is the fact that a lot of private schools are engaging in financial malpractices, and it is these financial malpractices that need to be checked. For example, in the past 1 year, Delhi government has been auditing the account of private schools before we allow them to raise fees. And the results have been absolutely shocking. Of course, schools can spend money on their teachers. Of course, they can spend money on education technology. But that's not what they are doing. Schools are buying property. They are buying flats for their society. They are siphoning off money to their management. And they are stashing up surplus money. One of the Delhi's most well-known schools had a surplus of 51 crores lying in their bank account, and yet they increased fees. Another school, a group of 4 schools had in their society 150 crores, and yet they increased.
Okay, I take the point that let's not paint everyone with the same brush, but when you hear instances like this.
No doubt, but what I'm trying to say is, after all, you have a system, you have a legal system in place. Come down heavily, create a school audit, close it down. If you can,
maybe name and shame sometimes.
Name and shame. Do a public shame about it. But why is everybody quiet? Because when you start asking, nobody gives any names and everybody keeps quiet. Why is it? So I think it's very, very essential that in order to let people survive, in order to let, because you shouldn't be profiteers, but across the world, private enterprise, private schooling is encouraged, and it helps a lot in innovative things. It helps in bringing different systems of learning, in different systems of excellence. You have magnet schools abroad. I mean, you can't do this.
Atishi, very quickly, I'll let you respond to that. Atishi, come in at this point. Would it help if we were just to make all these disclosures out there? Because right now, the point that is being made is that there are different strokes for different folks, but not everybody is buying that. Parents are now protesting at whatever the hike is at any school, even if the school is fair, is justified, and can prove where that money is going.
Absolutely. I think that transparency is eventually the only answer. For example, our government has spent a lot of time in auditing the accounts of schools. This is not really something that a government should be doing. Finally, I think that all accounts of the school should be made transparent. All accounts should be put online. Every penny that is spent should be available for the parents to see. Unfortunately, when we discuss this with private schools, they have actually largely refused this offer. They have said that they don't want to put their accounts online and they don't want to make them transparent.
Right. Lata Vaidyanathan, I'll just get you in. Lata Vaidyanathan, ma'am, come in at this stage. It's because there is this reluctance. That's the point that Atishi is making, and perhaps many parents will also echo this sentiment that there seems to be a reluctance which makes things opaque. And when that happens, this trust deficit just increases.
See, I don't think, if the regulatory systems and if the rating systems and if the audit systems are all in place, I don't think good private schools will shy away from making things public as is asked. We need to see that this kind of trust is built up among its stakeholders of every school, and also make things absolutely transparent. I disagree that all schools do not want to be transparent in the way in which they function. I think that look at the managing committees, there are teacher representatives, there are parent representatives, there are government representatives, the budgets are properly made and passed. I see no reason why this kind of suspicion should develop, this kind of activism to make it so populist amongst the entire population that it makes every private school feel as if they were robbing people of their rights.
Okay,
I
know everybody wants to come in. I know everybody wants to come in. I'll get
that whether it's the Delhi School Education Act,
No, I don't know.
One second, everybody. Okay,
or Haryana School Education Act, or any acts.
Okay.
All of them are well represented by every stakeholder.
Absolutely.
Actually, even as this starts to heat up, I'm running out of time. But Atishi, I'll let you respond to that quickly, and then I'll get all of you in. Yeah. Atishi, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, no, I was saying that I don't think that the point that is being made is that all private schools are robbing children. But I do think that all accounts of private schools should be put online. Another point that I would like to make is that the reason this sector has not been regulated so far is because large number of politicians actually own private schools, and that is the reason they have been allowed to get away with murder. Why is it that no schools have ever been audited? Why is it that governments haven't put out the demand that all their accounts should be online?
Okay.
I mean, I can probably name 10 politicians in Delhi who actually own chains of private schools.
Okay.
So
the business of education really out there.
So last year, CBSE, which is the Central Board for Secondary Education, which regulates schools, there are, as you know, schools are only regulated by this body at the central level. They had asked schools to disclose all their costs.
Right.
And their fee structure for the last so many years that they've been in existence, so that parents can project what will be the fee increase going forward. 18,000 odd schools are covered by CBSE.
But 14,000
Only 14,000 did it. No, but none of them have done it fully. So not all of them have actually disclosed their cost structure. They have disclosed their fee structure, but not their cost structure. Now look at the other part. The other education institution is ICSE. ICSE even not asked their schools to disclose this. So, you know, a state like Delhi can try to do something, but, you know, we are talking about a large country here. So,
So see that there is a cost, and cost is the primary driving the fee.
Let me just
Yeah, I'm completely out of time. Go ahead quickly, and then I'll get you in.
So it's all about it. If the cost is increasing, if they can put accounts online with the 3-year statement saying that this is how it is going in, then probably there may be a justification system in place.
And the representatives of schools, those who've been associated with schools, or at least on this panel, seem to have no problem with that. Mr. I'm completely out of time, but I'll give you the last
I'd like to say it very clearly that whether it is the Director of Education, whether it is the CBSE, essentially all schools are ready to put up. By and large, when we are asked for things,
not all, but
by and large,
if they were ready to put up, they would have put it up 5 years back.
If we don't have our documentation, we do not get affiliations. So let's be very clear. The documentation is there, and as again I'm trying to say to you, it's very important that schools have to be given some kind of autonomy where they can work and do good things around them, and that costs money. So parents have to also understand that they want certain things from schools,
and then there will be
a certain cost factor.
But who's going to regulate? Who's going to monitor just how much
perhaps the states
pay? How much should
so both the state and the central.
What about those audits? That is still the big debate. But I'm afraid I'm completely out of time. Thanks all so much. I know that the last word on this has not been spoken, but let's hope that those protests and the kind of violence that we've seen can come to an end. Thanks all so much for your time. Thank you very much.